Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today, we're talking Devin Haney, Jorge Linares, and Pacquiao Spence. Let's go.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy, just...
Devin Haney's putting his undefeated record on the line against Jorge Linares. Good fight. Good test for Devin Haney. And maybe even a little bit of bet speculation for the rest of us. So Devin Haney, of course, is our undefeated 25-0, 15 knockout, lightweight WBC champion. He is one of the best guys in one of the best divisions in boxing. This is the same division with Teofimo, with Lomachenko, and with Gervonta Davis. So Gervonta's possibly moving up, but we'll see. So he is one of the best guys in one of the best divisions. This is the pound-for-pound division, I feel, in boxing right now. 135 is where it's at. This is where careers are made. This is where Hall of Fame caliber talent will be displayed. So Devin Haney is, again, fighting Jorge Linares. Linares is 47-5 with 29 knockouts and all 5 losses by knockout. He's a 35-year-old fighter. He at one point was one of the most touted prospects in the sport, but had a few setbacks. He was TKO'd in one against Juan Carlos Salgado, and that was considered a really big upset at the time because Linares, in terms of the eye test, we always talk about the eye test in boxing, but Linares, early on in his career, and even now, really, looks to be an elite fighter, but he just stumbles here and there. He wound up getting knocked out by DeMarco and then Sergio Thompson. You can argue that Antonio DeMarco is a pretty good fighter, and he can give anyone really a run for their money, but he really had no business losing to Sergio Thompson. And he gave a really excellent showing of himself against Lomachenko in their fight. Even knocked Lomachenko down. Caught him with a straight right, pop, and down went Lomachenko. So Linares has speed. He's got power. He's got boxing ability. But he seems to have like a loss. I can't even tell what it is. It's just he'll lose concentration or he'll get hit random. It's like one round he'll be an A+ fighter. Everything will be going. The speed, the power, the defense. And then at other points, it seems like he has these like lapses in concentration. And you saw that a little bit against Pablo Cano, and where he got knocked out in one round when he tried to go up to 140. Now, I don't think it was a weight issue. It was more that I think Linares, if he does have a weakness, it's his chin. He was stopped in each and every single one of his losses. So if Linares is going to lose, he's going to get stopped. It seems like it, right? Historically, anyway. So, when we're looking at him and we're trying to evaluate his chances against Devin Haney, I think the speed difference should be comparable. But Linares is now 35, and Devin Haney is 22. So we're talking about a fighter who is known for his speed, who was in the aging process, fighting against, a kid who's 22. This is not even a prime Devin Haney that he's going up against. And Devin Haney has shown that he is of a really high caliber, at least when it comes to the eye test. Now, of course, I just spent the past couple of minutes telling you why the eye test is weird in boxing and how Linares also passed the eye test almost every single time he fights, except when he loses, right? So Devin Haney, he recently wound up beating Gamboa. He took him 12, though. And he didn't look particularly amazing beating a guy who can barely walk on a foot. Outside of that, he had that really insane knockout over Antonio Moran. Just a highlight reel knockout. Looked very scary. But outside of that, he really has not beaten too many people. He beat Mason Menard, who I thought at the time was a pretty decent fighter, but Mason is, he hasn't, I think I overvalued him a little bit. He hasn't shown me much going forward. I thought that he had that win against think it was the Cuban, not the Cuban, the Dominican fighter. I forget his name. It was a very, very awesome knockout. But Mason didn't turn out to be what I thought he can be. So, Devin Haney's resume is a little bit, it leaves a lot to be desired. Not even a little bit. It leaves a lot to be desired. So, against Jorge Linares, this is like probably Devin Haney's biggest test, I would feel. And he's going to be compared to fighters like Lomachenko and Teofimo based on how he does against Linares. He's a big, big favorite in this fight. And he should be. Because like I said, Linares has shown that when he steps up against the elite, and sometimes I guess not the elite, he has mental lapses. So I think in this fight where, Devin Haney's going to get hit here. Let's talk about why this fight is actually intriguing. I'm about to go on a ramble about why Devin Haney should look good, but let's find out why this fight is intriguing. Linares is going to touch Devin Haney. This is almost certainly a guarantee. If Linares can touch everyone he's fought against, he can touch Devin Haney. He touched Lomachenko. Lomachenko went down. And caught him very clean on. He beat Luke Campbell, beat Crolla. Devin Haney, he beat Mitchell. That's right. He beat Kevin Mitchell. Linares has fought world championship opposition for the better part of 10 years now. Beat Juarez. He fought world champions, beaten many of them, lost to some. He's a very, very, very good fighter. He just seems to not have that ability to keep it together for so long. So he's going to touch Devin Haney. So we're going to see what Devin Haney's chin is actually like. Because we've seen Devin Haney fight fighters who really are out of his league a little bit. So like I said, Devin Haney has been passing the eye test, but to what extent, right? To what extent is the eye test just a poor caliber of opposition, and to what extent is the eye test truly like a good measure? Now, they're going to be both the same height. They're both 5'8". But like I said, there is going to be that age difference. So in terms of who I'm picking to win this fight, I do like Devin Haney here. I do like Devin Haney. And this is going to be further exemplified by the fact that both Linares and Haney like to fight in that mid-range. And this is going to favor the faster fighter, the younger, the fresher fighter. In this case, I think it's going to favor Haney. While the speed is going to be comparable, I feel with every fight and with every 6 years to a month, a fighter like Linares is going to further lose a step. And Devin Haney, as he comes closer to his mid-20s, is gaining steps. He's taking no damage. He's only getting better, Devin Haney is. So I expect Devin Haney to show us something here in this fight. But this isn't to say that Linares has no chance. And this isn't to say that there is no money to be made in this fight. I definitely think there is. So if we look at DraftKings, right, because that's just the app I'm going to be using here. If we look at DraftKings, Devin Haney is a minus 1430 to Jorge Linares is plus 650. Now, I do expect Devin Haney to win here for the myriad of reasons that I mentioned. I feel that Linares is slowly losing steps. Devin Haney is an elite fighter. They fight at the range which should favor Haney, so on and so forth. Linares has been stopped every single time, 5 times. You accumulate stoppages, your chin further breaks down, blah, 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 blah. But Linares is a plus 650. That means you get 6.5 times the amount of money you bet. It almost becomes impossible not to put a little show me that money on Linares. I mean, even $20 will win you 120. More. That's quite a chunk of change. It was 130 actually. That's quite a chunk of change. Just to speculate. When those kind of odds pop up when you have guys at the world level, the world championship level, you almost have to. Again, guys, wait. First things first, let me just say. Guys, please, this is not betting advice. This is not financial advice. Please, this is just what I'm doing. You're all grown people. Please, you're all grown people. You place your own bets. You make your own decisions. So, it almost leaves me no choice but to speculate a little bit on Linares. There is no money to be made betting on Devin Haney here. That's obvious. No one's going to risk $1,400 to win 100. That's like sub 5% to win 100 on a fight. It's too absurd. This isn't Floyd Mayweather. This isn't, you know what I mean? We haven't seen Devin Haney against truly elite competition at the weight class that he's at. Everyone says, oh, well, Gamboa was elite at one point. Yeah, Gamboa was elite like maybe 8 years ago, fighting maybe 2 weight classes below 135. But we haven't seen Devin Haney against world championship opposition. And in his first fight, when they give you a plus 650, you almost have to, like I said, speculate a little bit. Now, if you want to be a little bit more conservative, you do have the over-under. The under 7.5 is a plus 113, and the over 7.5 is a minus 152. So, if it goes 8.5 rounds, if it goes to 8 rounds, 1 minute and 30 seconds in the 8th round, and you take the over or the under, that's basically what it's saying. That's what 7.5 means. Again, someone recently asked me this, and 7.5 means in the 8th round, the 7th round must complete. So in the 8th round, and half of that has to go through. That's what 7.5 means. Okay. So I've mentioned that Jorge Linares has been knocked out 5 times, and his chin is probably suspect. But I like the over 7.5 here. If you're being conservative and you're really trying to make a little bit of bread on this fight, I think trying to bet smarter or at least hedge your bets. So I like the over 7.5. Why? Devin Haney is not a knockout puncher. He hasn't been able to stop Santiago, although Santiago was undefeated, but he wasn't able to stop Gamboa either. And I think that Linares is not quite the puncher that we think he is. Yes, that knockout against Antonio Moran was absolutely insane. But that seemed like he landed a haymaker shot that Linares is probably not going to get caught with. I think Linares, especially early on, is going to be conservative. He's going to be jabbing a lot. And I think if he puts some fast right hands together on Haney, Haney may take a more conservative approach as well. So I don't see, nor do I believe that Devin Haney actually has that much power. Like I said, that was a wind-him-up shot that he knocked out Moran with. He hasn't quite demonstrated that kind of knockout power against, even pretty decent opposition outside of that. So I believe that Devin Haney is, if he's going to stop Linares, I think he's going to stop him later rather than earlier. So if I were to structure this bet, or how I may structure this bet, is take the over 7.5 rounds. This would cover decision wins by both. This would cover if Linares knocks him out late in the fight, or if he eventually, Devin Haney walks down and stops Linares and after 1 minute and 30 seconds in the 8th round. But I would also, again, like I said, speculate on Linares because the payout is just too heavy. When you have that much coming in, you almost have to speculate. It's too. Devin Haney is unproven at this level. He is. No matter how good he looks with his jabs, with his hooks, with his footwork, with his defense, Devin Haney doesn't really get hit. But against whom? Who are these fighters that he is knocking out, and who is it that's not landing? Gamboa had a few moments of success, landed a few shots here and there against Haney. I don't think he really won many rounds, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 rounds at most in that fight. But he didn't look like particularly outside of his league when he fought Haney either, and he can barely walk in that fight. So, you have to be a little bit weary of just straight up not putting any money on Linares because you think it's going to be a blowout. The eye test says it should be kind of like a one-sided affair in Haney, but we haven't seen Haney against this level of opposition, and Linares has proven to be, at points, an A-level fighter. He's actually like a B-level fighter simply because he can't hold it together, it seems like it, for long stretches of time. But like I said, I like Devin Haney to win here, but my bet is to take the 7.5 over 7.5 with Linares, or take Linares with the 7.5 as a hedge. That's what I like it here. Okay, let's move on. We have some big news about, speaking of betting, about the Manny Pacquiao Spence fight. The odds are absurd here. Manny Pacquiao is somewhere between a plus 300 and plus 350 opening against Errol Spence, who's at minus 400. I don't care who you think is winning this fight and who may ultimately win this fight. But Manny fucking Pacquiao at plus 300 is perhaps the mispricing of the past 5 or 6 years. This is insane. Manny Pacquiao just beat an undefeated Keith Thurman. And you're going to give him a plus 300? Yeah, sure, it's Errol Spence. I don't care. Guys, plus 300 for Manny Pacquiao. You know, I'll watch Dwyer sometimes. He does boxing commentary as well, boxing videos on YouTube. When I saw that he said Manny Pacquiao was a plus 350, I thought Dwyer was talking nonsense, and I looked it up. Manny Pacquiao is actually a plus 300, plus 350, depending on where you're looking. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. You have to, well, again, not financial advice, please. But you have to speculate on Pacquiao here. He just beat Keith Thurman, who was undefeated. There's no way a fighter of this caliber, even at 42, 43 or whatever, is a plus 300, 350. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. And I'm not saying Spence doesn't win the fight, but when we're betting, right, and when we're watching a sport like boxing, and they give you these kind of odds for Manny Pacquiao, you almost have to take it all the time. I understand if Pacquiao was going to fight like Golovkin or Canelo, and you give him a plus 350, plus 400, that's reasonable. But this is a guy who's in his weight class, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy who's in his weight class. There is almost nobody outside of prime Mayweather who should be that much of a favorite against Manny Pacquiao. Guys, no way. Just no way. This is Manny Pacquiao 40 is still lightning quick. He's still lightning quick. Spence isn't particularly fast. He was that beginning of those, like Dwyer said, the beginning of that Brook fight was competitive. Spence is a very good fighter. Absolutely great fighter, actually. But when you watched him against Danny Garcia, did you think that this is a guy who's going to be minus 450, minus 400 against Pacquiao? No way. No way, no way, no way. It's honestly I think this is, for all of us, this is a gift. This is a speculative gift. You rarely get a chance to sniff these kind of odds with a Hall of Fame all-time great such as Pacquiao. Even a rematch with Mayweather, if they give you these kind of odds, you would have to be like, well, I guess you got to at least try with a plus 300 on Pacquiao. It's Pacquiao. But against Spence, this isn't Mayweather. Spence is a strong guy who's going to try and walk people down, and yes, he may even stop Pacquiao, and he may win. That may all be true when fight time comes. But when we are betting on fights, we are not just saying who's going to win this fight. This is not the way betting works. You know, all bets are not minus 100. If all bets were minus 100, betting would be easy and everyone would be making a lot of money. But the way that bets are structured, we don't necessarily bet on who we think is going to win or lose. We bet on where the best value is or potential value. Same way as I said with Jorge Linares at minus 650, it's at least worth some beer money. Pacquiao at plus 300 is worth a lot more than some beer money. It just is. The upside is too high with a fighter who's too high of a caliber to not speculate on him. But like I said, I'm not saying that Manny Pacquiao is going to beat Spence. This isn't what we're talking about here. We're talking about a mispricing of the value. You know, it's sometimes I don't need a new Mercedes or whatever, but if someone's offering a brand new Mercedes for $20,000, you may want to pick it up because that's not what it's valued at. That's a misvalue. This is the way you kind of have to think about fights and all this other stuff. This isn't like I said, it's not a minus 100 or something like that where all we have to do is pick and we double our money. No. That would be obviously very easy. But a plus 300, Manny Pacquiao, who's still lightning quick, who's still got power, who's a southpaw, who's going to be changing angles. Danny Garcia was competitive in that fight. Danny Garcia was competitive in that fight. So why would we expect Manny Pacquiao to be blown out? If Danny Garcia can be competitive, then why is it, I don't understand who plays these odds at plus 300. You're telling me that's how unlikely an upset here is? With Manny Pacquiao? Guy who just beat Keith Thurman, who has more Hall of Fames on his resume than practically anybody, alive? Did everyone forget who Manny Pacquiao is? Yeah, so, I'm just venting a little bit. This is great for us as bettors if you're betting. For me, at least. I will absolutely speculate on Pacquiao. Without a question. It was just too easy. Speaking of speculation. One of my little golden rules, right? So there's a fight this weekend. And it's going to be against Mosley Jr. is fighting against Jason Quigley. Yes. You may know one of my little running jokes on this podcast is never bet on the British fighter. And now you guys will say, well, Taylor just won. Well, I actually already got burned on that. I didn't bet on Taylor against Prograis, and Taylor proved me wrong. So Taylor was now exempt from the British curse, as he was able to demonstrate his ability to, be above the British level. Sometimes British fighters get a lot of hype, but they're very good fighters, but they're not quite as good as the hype is to be a lot of times. Well, Jason Quigley is actually an Irish fighter, not even British. 18-1 with 14 knockouts and one loss by knockout, which he lost against Triano Johnson, who I have no idea what that is. My whole point is I will absolutely speculate on Mosley Jr. Mosley Jr. is a plus 162, and I will absolutely speculate on Mosley Jr. in this fight. Not that I think he's going to win or anything. Mosley is not a world championship fighter. He is not his father. He's not in the same league. But he's an okay, lanky kind of fighter. He's 6'1" at super middleweight. And I think he has the ability to box with Jason. So, again, this is partly my bias against British Isle fighters. Just partly. And I am going to speculate on Mosley Jr. I'm not saying you should do it, but as a running joke on my channel, I will bet against British fighters almost all the time unless they can prove me otherwise. And like I said, Taylor had proved me otherwise in the Prograis fight. I got burned over there, and I said, okay, Taylor is the real deal. He's not a British hype job. He's Scottish anyway, but whatever. He's not which is part of Britain, but neither here nor there. But he's not a hype job, which is why I chose Taylor to win that fight. And over here, like I said, I'm taking Mosley Jr. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we have another pretty consequential fight, actually, this weekend. We have the soon-to-be, I think, Hall of Famer, Donaire, fighting against Nordine Ouabali. Now, Donaire is a plus 215 against Ouabali. And I think that this is also a little bit of a mispricing. Donaire just had a very competitive showing against pound-for-pound fighter Inoue. And here he is, a plus 215 underdog against Ouabali. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is absolutely a potential mismatch. I mean, well, not a mismatch, but a mispricing. Ouabali's 5'3" against Donaire, who is 5'7". Ouabali's a considerably smaller guy. With, Ouabali sitting at 17. He's undefeated, 17-0, 12 knockouts from France. But I don't know if a fighter who's that much smaller than Nonito can be such a favorite. he's almost 2 inches shorter than Inoue. And one of Inoue's problem was Nonito was just a slightly bigger guy than Inoue, and Inoue won because Inoue is such a high level talent. But this guy's giving up even more height. He's going to be sitting at Nonito. Okay, so here let me give you a little example. Nonito Donaire's best shot is his hook. It's his left hook. That's the shot which he knocked out Montiel with that crazy, scary knockout. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. That was the shot that he landed. That left hook. Now, he actually even hurt Inoue, I think, with a left hook in his fight. Actually, I'm almost 100% sure. Well, against Ouabali, who's that short at 5'3", guys, so you understand, he doesn't have to raise his hook. It's going to come at exactly the shoulder level where he's holding it. I think this is a bad setup. I have no idea why the casinos have Ouabali as such a favorite. I think we warrant speculation here. This is all wrong. I think this is all wrong. You're not gonna look if Inoue wasn't able to stop Donaire. I don't think Ouabali will. I saw him against Rashi Warren, and he looked good, and he won a close but clear fight. But he doesn't look like someone who should be favored against Donaire, who is going to be a Hall of Fame fighter. So I feel very strongly about the fact that this is I don't know what fight they're looking at here, but a 5'3" southpaw who's standing at Hook's height with Donaire is a horrible matchup. A horrible matchup, I think. And I will absolutely, at plus 215, be putting money underneath Donaire. Let's talk a little bit about some boxing, let's say rumors, but some boxing talk. Now, Lomachenko has said that after watching the fight a lot of times with Teofimo, he believes that it was a draw. I wish it were the case, but I didn't see that fight as a draw. I think, unfortunately, that 12th round sealed Lomachenko's fate, at least in my eyes. He gave up, I think, 5 of the first 6 rounds or 7 rounds, and he took all the remaining, almost all the rounds after 7, so 8, 9, 10, 11. But as the fight hung in the balance in the 12th, I think I had it 6-5 going into the 12th, he lost the 12th round. He really did. If he wins that 12th round, I think the fight is a draw for sure. For sure. I think the rounds that Lomachenko won were pretty clearly Lomachenko's, and the rounds that Teofimo won were clearly Teofimo's. It wasn't too difficult to score. I did think the judges had a little wider, but I thought a 115, 113 is the right score, 7 rounds to 5. I think Lomachenko's rounds were pretty clear. I think the only round that wasn't so clear was that, I think it was the second. I haven't seen the fight in a few months, so I'm not sure. I think it was the second round was the only one that wasn't like obvious one way or the other. So I think anything that was like 117, 111 or whatever was too wide. I think Lomachenko clearly won round 8, 9, 10, and 11. So he absolutely took those 4 rounds. And I thought round 2 was his as well, as he landed those pretty clean shots. But I can't see it any wider than 116, 112. But I also don't see it any closer than 115, 113. Personally. And so I understand Lomachenko wants to prove that, or at least he's saying that that fight was a draw, but I don't really think it was a draw. I think you really have to find a round where Teofimo kind of won. I mean, Lomachenko really didn't do anything that first 6 or 7 rounds. He just really didn't outside that second round. I remember I was watching the fight with my friends, and I was just like, guys, he's fallen so far behind that he can't really win the fight anymore. I remember saying that. I think it was round 7. I'm like, he's officially at the point where best case is he wins a draw on my card. Barring any knockouts, of course. Knockdowns. So, I do believe that a rematch would be awesome. But, on this channel, I harp about the age all the time. That's one of my big things. I've watched boxing now, I think, for like 15 years since I got into it. Which is my life. Since I got into it, and I've seen fighters. I've seen what time does to fighters. And the old adage, as cliche as it is Father Time is the only really undefeated fighter. If you stick around long enough, your skills will diminish, your speed will diminish, your power will wane, your chin will become brittle. You will lose. You will lose. Not everyone's like Mayweather, who is both an elite talent and fighter, but also has very good matchmaking. But for most fighters, the longer they stick around, and especially if you keep fighting high-level opposition. Now, Lomachenko's resume is pretty good. He's fought generally high-level opposition. The majority of his fights have been at the world championship level and have been against pretty high-caliber fighters. Hell, in his third fight, he fights Gary Russell and beats him. Gary Russell Jr. is a very high-level talent. Forget about what his resume shows, but he's a high-level talent. So, losing to Teofimo, you would hope a rematch happens. But like I said, I don't know what Lomachenko does differently. Clearly, the power is a bit much for Lomachenko, Teofimo's. Clearly, it bothered him enough that he had to wait until Teofimo slowed down just a little bit before he really started to engage. Lomachenko's obviously a very high-caliber fighter, and obviously was able to see, this is now coming at me a little bit, with a little less heat, with a little less speed. He was able to then open up on Teofimo, and I think he really did wins 8, 9, 10, and 11. I think it was pretty clearly a lot of very clear shots. Lomachenko had absolutely very clean shots that he landed on Teofimo. And I think at one point he even hurt Teofimo. I think he was a little stunned over there. Because Lomachenko was able to land, it's not that Lomachenko's power, it's that he's able to land shots at very precise angles, and sometimes from angles which Teofimo didn't quite see coming all that easily. He didn't think those shots would come at that speed, at that time, in that location. So, again, this is just, we're just talking about what's happening in boxing, and I would love to see a rematch. Don't get me wrong, Lomachenko's one of my favorite fighters. I would love to see that rematch. I would love for Lomachenko to win. I'll always root for Lomachenko. But I don't think he won the first Teofimo fight, and I personally do not think he will win the second one. And even this fight with Nakatani depends on the odds. Money, I gotta win. Look, I'm gonna. When it comes to money, I don't play who I want to win, and whatnot. As you saw last week with Brandon Figueroa, or 2 weeks ago. That's who I wanted to win. But my mind was telling me someone else was going to win. So I set that fight out, and as it turns out, my heart was right, my mind was wrong. But generally speaking, I will always bet with my mind. And no matter how much I want Lomachenko to win, if a Teofimo fight happens again, but there's no way Teofimo's going to be a plus 400 again, which was obviously another thing which I missed on that bet because I just really thought Lomachenko would walk through him. I don't think Lomachenko would win a rematch, even though I will absolutely be rooting for him. But like I said, that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Stop the Fight. Enjoy your weekend. It is a Thursday. I'll speak to you guys on a Sunday or Monday, hopefully with some good news. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy. Just.